Now, I've made videos on how to counter the new meta, how to counter every single hero in the game, and just general counters. But I think it's fair to tell you what the meta actually is now, and how to properly play it so you can pretty much win every single ranked match. And we'll also be going over all the pick rates, ban rates, and even win rates for most of the top heroes. But without further ado, let's get started. Now, the first character I really want to talk about is none other than Rocket Raccoon and why he's so underestimated. Now, despite boasting a strong win rate, Rocket Raccoon often gets a bad reputation. Many players label him as the weakest support and blame him for team losses. However, the stats actually suggest otherwise. Having a Rocket on your team in a random lobby might actually increase your chances of winning. Now, a major reason for this disconnect is how players perceive defensive ultimates. While often seen as essential, they can sometimes be overvalued. In many cases, a defensive ultimate simply cancels out an opponent's offensive ultimate, leading to a neutral outcome rather than a real advantage. Now, Rocket offers a unique benefit with his BRB ability that allows you to revive a teammate within 50 meters every 45 seconds, which is essentially like an undo button for an early death. And I will say that a first pick or earlier pick is an essential or crucial part of this game. Typically, the team that gets the first elimination will undoubtedly win the team fight, but despite that, Rocket has the chance to reverse that problem, easily bringing back one of your other strategists, a duelist that was doing a ton of damage, or even one of your frontline tanks. On top of that, Rocket is probably one of the hardest characters to actually eliminate because how mobile and agile this character can actually be. In comparison to a lot of the other strategists, Rocket Raccoon has a lower death rate. And honestly, you gotta leave my Rocket Raccoon players alone. They're actually a lot more helpful than you might think. So stop blaming him for your loss and just think about what you did wrong. And it seems as more players start to pick up Marvel Rivals as their main game, I slowly find myself being converted into a strategist main because no one wants to play it. Now, believe it or not, Rocket Raccoon currently has a 36.61% pick rate with a 53.64% win rate, which is actually insane. Now, Rocket already had a deceptively high win rate, and after being buffed, it's even stronger. Now, some may argue that Rocket falls off in higher ranks, but when you look at Grandmaster data, we see that while Rocket's pick rate drops to 30.86%, he still maintains one of the highest win rates in the entire game at 52.07%. So you should think twice before yelling at your Rocket Raccoon player. But what do you think in the comments down below? Now, one character that I actually found rather interesting is Adam Warlock. With the triple strategist meta running rampant, you would think that Adam Warlock is a very good pick for this, because you could have two other strategists like a Luna Snow, Cloak and Dagger, or even Invisible Woman, and then fill in that third strategist with Adam Warlock, making the players on your team practically never die with the Soul Bond ability and the ability to bring everyone back from the dead. But believe it or not, for Adam Warlock, he only has a 7.45% pick rate, which is extremely low. Now, to put that in perspective, Cloak and Dagger has one of the highest pick rates by a significant margin, over 50% across all ranks, while Adam Warlock only has somewhere about 7, which again, that just seems insane to me. But with all of that being said, he does have a rather positive win rate, boasting a 53.59% win rate. Chances are, a majority of the time, if you have a Adam Warlock on your team, that of course if you have two other strategists as well, because if you don't really know, Adam Warlock's kit is a little bit lackluster when it comes to healing. Now, in a way, just like Rocket Raccoon, Adam Warlock is often criticized. Now, many players often claim he's one of the worst supports and blame him for team losses. But if you look on the stats, if you have an Adam Warlock on your team in a random lobby, you're statistically more likely to win. So my question is, if you have an Adam Warlock on your team and you end up losing the match, is it the character in the game that's at fault, or is it the player behind the monitor? That's something that we'll honestly really never know. But of course, I'm always interested to hear what you have to say in the comments down below. So let me know what you think about Adam Warlock. Do you think he's often too criticized as being one of the worst supports, or not? Now, something I found interesting when researching for this video was about Doctor Strange, and he's actually the second most picked character. The second most picked character only has a 39.73% pick rate and a 50% win rate. In my opinion, this makes him a rather balanced result. He's played a lot and delivers a solid performance. And I will say, most of the time, if I have a person insta-locking Doctor Strange on my team, I feel really confident to let this guy solo tank if need be. So to me personally, it makes sense that he has this pick rate and win rate. But of course, let me know what you think in the comments down below. But this next character I was actually shocked by, and that's Magneto. Now, he only really sits around a 27% pick rate with a 48.51% win rate. Now, I think this is perfectly fine because he's a hero that actually requires a little bit more finesse than the other vanguards in the entire game. Now, he's a character that proves more skilled players can extract much more value from him. He's also a really great counter to Cloak and Dagger. He can easily counter her ultimate by using his ultimate at the same time and then nuking Cloak and Dagger. But let me know what you think about the pick rate for Magneto. Do you think it's fair? Do you think more players need to pick him up? Or do you think he's sitting in the right spot? Now, I'm not going to sit here and talk about every single hero's pick rate and win rate because let's be honest, that's that's rather boring. I'm only picking some interesting heroes before I move on to the next section. Now there's actually only one DPS or duelist character that I genuinely want to talk about, mainly for the fact that I find it rather interesting, and that's Moonknight. Now surprisingly, Moonknight only has a 46.4% win rate despite being a popular pick. That suggests while he's easy to play and easy to manage, he might not be the most effective in actual games. His best matchups are against triple tank or triple support compositions, but lower ranked games often lack enough tanks and supports for him to actually excel. If you have characters heavily diving you, or if you have a Storm on the other team, he's gonna struggle pretty hard. Speaking of Storm, let's talk about the new meta. Now one of Marvel Rivals' newest metas, now I wouldn't necessarily say newest, but definitely current, is none other than triple strategist. Now you might be sitting here thinking that, triple strategist isn't awful to play against. If you are, you're kinda crazy. But this meta, especially in higher elo, is definitely becoming one of the more annoying things to deal with, and that's because the strengths of this meta are pretty insane. One of that being unmatched survivability with 3 supports on the team healing throughout becomes nearly unmanageable for opponents to counter. Heroes like Adam Warlock can even revive fallen teammates, allowing teams to recover from near defeat scenarios. You also have way more sustained team fights. The composition excels in prolonged engagements where attrition wears down opponents. Characters like Luna Snow and Mantis can deal heavy damage while healing allies, making them dual threats. And you also just have utility overload, while many strategists bring more than healing to the table. For instance, Loki's illusions can be used to stack regeneration domains in a wide area. Or you have Invisible Woman, who provides constant AoE healing and displacement, making it a nightmare to deal with, especially in solo queue. But what heroes do you really want to be playing to optimize this team composition? First, in the hero select screen, you and your team have to decide what you actually want to do. Do you want to have 2 tanks, 1 DPS, and then 3 healers, or do you want 1 tank? That's probably one of the harder decisions to make. Now typically if you're running 1 tank or 1 vanguard, you either want that character to be Magneto or a Doctor Strange. Now you pick between those 2 characters for the fact that you have a shield. If you're playing a 1 vanguard strategy, then you're going to need a shield to protect you, especially if the enemy team is running a Doctor Strange. Not having your own shield to really counter that can become a serious issue. Now don't get me wrong, you could run other tanks as a solo tank, but it will really just make your whole life a lot harder if you're not running Doctor Strange or Magneto. Now on the flip side, if you wanted to run 2 tanks instead of 2 DPS, you can certainly do that. First and foremost, you would definitely need still a Doctor Strange or Magneto for one of your Vanguard roles. Then from there, you could definitely pick it off tank, a character maybe like Groot, Thor, Captain America, or even Hulk if he's not banned. These off tanks provide great distraction and the flexibility to peel when needed for your triple supports. Although if you are running triple supports, you shouldn't really be needing to peel for them, and if you are, there might be some sort of issue there. But that's just me. Now that you have your vanguards out of the way, what DPS are we looking to run with a triple strategist setup? Now I will say, depending on what the other team runs as their duelist and as their strategist is definitely a major contributor to what you should be playing as a duelist. Now typically, if you're running 1 duelist for the triple strategist setup, you'll be wanting to run a character like Punisher, mainly because he synergizes well with Rocket Raccoon, one of the best picks for triple strategist setups. With infinite ammo and some quick mobility, the Punisher can dish out a ton of damage while relatively staying safe a majority of the time. Now for whatever reason, if all of the stars align and Storm is not banned and you're running 2 duelists instead of 1, I definitely recommend running the Punisher with Storm, so Storm could damage boost Punisher to deal even more damage with the infinite ammo. And Storm, regardless of whatever team setup you're running for the triple strategist strategy, she's definitely always going to be a very solid pick because of what she brings to the table. Now you can definitely argue and say other picks, that's perfectly fine, but just as this my choices in the example at hand. And let me know in the comments down below what duelists you prefer. Now here comes the question for supports. What strategies do we run for triple support team compositions? Now one of the biggest factors when picking these strategies is that in Diamond and up, typically Luna Snow is going to be banned. So we're going to be building this team composition with that in mind. So first and foremost, we typically want a Cloak and Dagger just because Cloak and Dagger is an insanely strong healer, insane mobility, super high healing output, paired with a insane ultimate. There's really no reason why you shouldn't pick her. Now for our second strategist, there's definitely a couple things we could choose from. We could either opt for another defensive ultimate like Invisible Woman. We could pick a character like Loki, so we could get 2 Cloak and Dagger ultimates and have the flexibility to have a second ultimate of anything in the game. Or we could run a character like Adam Warlock to get the revive. But typically, I would probably choose Cloak and Dagger followed by a Loki, or Invisible Woman, one of the two. Then for the third strategist, because we have the two defensive ults, it has to be hands down Rocket Raccoon because of his synergy with the Punisher, or if you're playing Winter Soldier. You have an incredible ultimate that gives a solid damage boost, and you have the ability to revive an ally every 45 seconds, so in my opinion, Rocket Raccoon is a no-brainer of a pick. And honestly, anyone that hates on Rocket Raccoon as being a bad pick, I generally don't think you play the game and only listen to streamers, but that's just me. So in a perfect world, this is how my team comp would go. First and foremost, we would have a solo tank of Doctor Strange, followed up with the two duelists of the Punisher and Storm. Then we're going to be running Cloak and Dagger with Invisible Woman, followed up by a Rocket Raccoon. In my opinion, it's a pretty solid team comp. Of course, there are some vulnerabilities, just like with everything in this game, but let me know in the comments down below what you think up with this triple strategist setup. What do you think needs to be nerfed, or what needs to be changed so it's not super annoying to play into? Now, this is a video I might turn into a series giving some, weekly updates of what the current meta is, the current, pick rates, win rates, and maybe even ban rates. So if you would like to see more videos like this, make sure to hit that like button. It's the best way of telling me that you want to see more. And of course, if you found this video entertaining, or if you found it helpful in any way, shape, or form, do me a favor and hitting that like and subscribe button. It's the best way to help out the channel. But regardless, I hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.